How's it going, everybody? In this video, I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about the new VMware Certified Advanced Professional, or what we commonly refer to as the VCAP exams, that are basically the next level up from the VCP or the VMware Certified Professional. Now, I've taken the VCAP for data center virtualization design, and it's a rather intense exam where you're focused on, how you would design a data center environment running ESXi. NSX for the new VCAP Deploy exam, that I just saw this come out last night, and I'm pretty stoked about it because I was actively working towards studying for that exam on 6.4 code on NSX for vSphere, which is NSX-V. But NSX-V last month became end of life, and I believe end of support as well, meaning that VMware, if you still need to support a V environment, then you need to tell them why, so they'll continue to support you. And I'm working with a lot of clients right now where we're either removing V from the environment, and I'm working with the client actively on doing that, or you would go through and migrate from V to T and get that all squared away. So the new exam just came out, and I saw it posted yesterday, and I was pretty stoked about it because this is something that I have been waiting for pretty patiently. I passed the VCP for NSX for data center back in June of last year. So it's been about 6 months since I've seen the exam and stuff like that for the VCP. But at the same point in time, and I put a video out on it when I passed, where now the T environment is going to be the new exam that you're going to get tested on. There is still the ability until, what did VMware say? It's the 6.2 version of the exam will be retiring January of next year, which is a 23 question exam. And I'll go ahead and share my screen here in just a second, just so you guys can see what's going on. So if you were to Google this, for example, if you were to Google VMware NV Deploy, I think is what I Googled, you get this guy right here. And I clicked on this link right here, which brings you to this page right here. And then if you click right here, you get this guy pops up. So let's walk through this. So what is the VCAP? The VCAP is something that a lot of people don't normally go for. Now, if you have a background in networking, there is kind of a easy way to get into this. If you have a Cisco certification, which a lot of people go get their CCNA because there's no prerequisite to get your CCNA, you don't need to go take an official training course from Cisco. Where VMware, in order for you to get your VCP, you do need to take an official training course from VMware. And it's usually a week long, and it's kind of expensive. So there's a workaround. It's kind of I don't want to call it a back door, but it kind of is. Where if you have a Cisco certification, and you CCNA, CCNP, CCIE, any one of those will work. You can put it forth to VMware, and they'll validate that you have a networking background, and then you won't be required to go take your NV, the official training course. I forget what they exactly call it. The ICM course, the Install, Configure, Manage. So when you do it the network virtualization or NSX way, it makes it a whole lot easier to work with. So you can go get your VCP in NSX, and then you can go get your VCP in data center virtualization, which is, I did it the other way around. I worked for a Cisco VMware partner a long time ago, and almost 10 years ago, and I went through and they paid for the training course. It was a week long thing that I went through. I passed the VCP shortly thereafter, and I've stayed VMware certified pretty much the entire time, and stuff like that. So getting the NV exam was something that I needed to do because in my current job, I do a lot of networking on the VMware side. So I work with NSX quite a bit. So both V and T. So when I found this exam, when it came out, I was already actively studying for the VCAP NV design so that I could at least have part of the VCAP knocked out. I am currently waiting for the deploy exam to become an option to click on so that I can actually take it when it comes out. I'm probably going to take design first, just because of the fact that I'm further along down that road and stuff like that. And there's a couple different design guides that I'll show you that you can use for reference if you wanted to dive into it. But my goal is to take the design exam first and then take deploy afterwards. And I don't know if I'm going to have to travel to a Pearson VUE location. There's one here and not too far from where I live that I can go to physically and take. I don't know if they're going to still allow you to or still force you to go to a Pearson VUE testing facility, or if they'll treat it like the on-view variation where you can take it from your home. I don't know which way they're going to do it. I have a feeling that it's going to be something you're going to have to travel to a Pearson VUE location to take. But I'm hoping that the simple fact that you can log into VMware Hands-On Labs or hol.vmware.com, and you can do that from the privacy of your own home. I'm hopefully that they'll have that same capability and take your exams like you will at Cisco if you're taking, when I took the VPN exam, or if I took the I haven't taken any Cisco exams in a long time. All the VMware stuff in Palo Alto and stuff like that I've taken over the recent past. But my goal, design first, then deploy. Now, I'm not going to focus too much on the design in this video. I want to talk more about the deploy because it's the new one out. But let me go ahead and share my screen again. And so this is, if you were to come in here, let's say if you don't have any VCAP certifications, then you are required to take you have to take this. And I don't know if they still require you to take it. At least it was a while back. There was the requirement that you had to go sit for a training class, but they may not make you do that anymore. But then you also have to pass the qualifying exam. So this one here is this is the current one that you can take today, which is this is the 6.2 release of NSX for vSphere. This is the Advanced Deploy 3.0. So this is the one that I'm currently going to be studying for. This is the one I'm going to go after. So the one that's on the old version, it's more questions. I have no idea, and there's more features in V than there is in T in some respects. You lose some capabilities in T, like Service Composer is not there anymore, and stuff like that. But my suspicion is that there was a lot more specificity in the questions, where they're able to break it out more. Sometimes you can kind of group multiple questions into a block of things where you would, for example, you would create a transport zone, and then you would create your logical switch, and then you would, maybe you had an additional NSX manager tied to a different vCenter instance, and then you would create universal objects, and you would do a universal logical switch and a UDLR and things like that. The concept of universal logical option or logical objects and things like that goes away in T because there's no such thing as a universal switch. So you can stretch a segment across multiple data centers if you want to, but the concept of the universal object is gone. It's no longer there because you're no longer tying one NSX manager to one vCenter instance. Technically, NSX-T and vCenter are decoupled from each other. You can add vCenter as a compute manager, but you don't go through and it's not a 1-to-1 ratio. If you have multiple vCenters, you don't have to deploy multiple NSX managers. So this is the exam I'm going to be going after, which is this guy right here. And I clicked on the certification details. Now, if you look through here, let me go ahead and zoom in just a little bit. This is a few pages long. Let me go ahead and get out of the way. If you look through here, the NSX or the VCAP NV Deploy 2022 is someone that knows how to work with NSX-T or NSX for data center. Now, there's two parts to the exam, and let me zoom in here a little bit more so you guys can see it a little more clearly. You have the technical associate exam that you can take, and then you have the VCP. Now, I have this exam right here. I've already taken this one and passed it. I am currently studying for this one, and then I will eventually go take this one. And then once you have these two and you've passed them, you get what they call the VCIX, the VMware Certified Implementation Expert, in whatever particular vertical you're working in. This is just going to be network virtualization. So you have your VCIX-NV. So if you had, say for example, gone out and taken the data center design VCAP exam, and then you passed the data center deploy VCAP exam, guess what? You couple those two together, you'd be a VCIX in DCV. I'm also going to be working on taking that as well. Now, beyond that, let me go ahead and zoom back out. If you come down here a little bit further, go ahead and get out of the way. You have a couple different ways that you can go about that. If you don't have any VCAP exams knocked out, you need to earn the VCAP or the VCP, which I currently have. They recommend you take the advanced version of the troubleshooting NSX-T. And then you have to review the exam guides. And so that's 3V0-41.22. That's the NSX for vSphere version. And then Advanced Deploy NSX-T Data Center 3.x, 3V0-41.22. That's going to be the new exam. And then you have a bunch of options over here when it comes to how you would handle all the advanced capabilities and things like that. So I recommend anybody here that is looking into how this stuff works, I recommend reading through all of these. I've read through most of these. It's really good information. And then you have the exam you can take. I'm going to be scheduling this one right here. Now, this is if you have some older ones or if you already have a couple of other exams and stuff like that, which you would need to take, so on and so forth. So just a lot of the same information. If you have a Cisco certification, stuff like that. So those are basically the details for that. Now, beyond that, if you scroll back up to the top and you click on this guy right here, this will take you to this page right here, which is the actual information about the advanced deploy exam. And the one thing you want to pay attention to is this right here. What specific product are you going to be tested on? Are you going to be tested on 6.2, which ironically is the version of code that you would be tested on inside. If you were to take the NSX-V exam, that's what you would be being tested on, which has a slightly different UI than 6.4.10, 6.4.11, which is the most current release of NSX for vSphere. Now, this will be going towards your VCAP NV Deploy 2022. So I downloaded the exam guide, and it's pretty straightforward. There's a lot of and I'll go ahead and just show it to you so you guys can see it. If we were to scroll in here or zoom in, you can see that it's a 16-item lab-based exam with a passing score of 300. And you have the actual exam time is 220 minutes, so it's like 3.5 hours, almost 4 hours, 3.5. We'll split the difference. We'll say 3.5 hours of time that you're going to take. So you have to have a VCP NV in order to take it, and you must be really well versed in NSX-T. There's really no getting around that. So the first three here are not tested on. These guys, architecture, product solutions, and then planning and design. Planning and design is the only one that is tested in the design exam. So sections 1, 2, and 3 are not tested on. Section 4, Section 5, and the rest of the sections are tested on. So you're going to have to know how to deploy NSX-T, deploy the manager, understand how to configure the management data plane components, transport zones, IP pools, transport nodes, making sure everything matches what they want you to do, multi-site configuration. So it does say here in a multi-site configuration. Now, when I see something like that, there's technically two different ways to interpret multi-site. You have the multi-site where it's legit multi-site, where you have a manager cluster, which I only run one manager in my environment. It gets the job done because it's a lab. And then you join other data centers or vCenter instances to your implementation, and then you deploy NSX to those sites as well, and then you're able to stretch your NSX logical switches and your segments in tier 1, tier 0 gateways to those other locations. So it just depends on how you want to interpret that. There's another variation called federation. Federation is a way for you to build a hierarchical control plane where you've got global managers and local managers, and there's communication going back and forth between them. But in the current releases of NSX-T, depending on how much functionality you want will determine basically which direction you go. So if you need a lot of features from NSX-T, multi-site is the way to go because you don't lose many features. If you want to go federation and you don't really care about all the whiz-bang wow stuff, you can go federation, and most clients go that direction if they don't need a lot of features. They're just looking for distributed firewall and logical switching and some basic inter-segment communication, tier 1, tier 0 gateway, that type of stuff. So multi-site configuration, that's going to be something that would be, this is more of an advanced, if you can deploy NSX-T in its entirety to a single location, then you're just basically pushing those additional bits out to other locations. Layer 2 services, layer 2 bridging, routing, BGP, static routes, VRF Lite, EVPN. In 3.0, BGP was supported, and in 3.1 they added OSPF. You've got VRF Lite and EVPN. Those are going to be some things we'll be talking about as well. Unfortunately, the versions of NSX-T that you get from the VMUG, the VMware Users Group, only supports the limited export version of NSX-T. So because you get the limited export version, nothing IPsec or layer 2 VPN is supported. So you don't have the luxury of being able to deploy site-to-site VPN between your tier 1 gateways, or tier 0 gateways. You can't do layer 2 VPN. You can't do any of the advanced VPN capabilities that are there. You can do your data center edge and edge clusters. You can do NAT. You can do DHCP and DNS. The only thing you really can't do is the VPNs. So you can do load balancing, both one-armed and just normal load balancing. You can do distributed firewall and grouping objects. You can do gateway firewall. I believe distributed IDS and NSX intelligence require a higher level of licensing, like the advanced threat protection. I do know there's a couple in here that I'm not going to be able to test out, but a lot of these features we will be testing out and how they work, and how to troubleshoot different things and stuff like that, and how to work with them and things like that. So I will be going through and doing quite a few demos on how all this stuff works. And as a matter of fact, here happens to be my lab environment that I've got currently built, and I've been working on this now for a couple of weeks now. I'll go ahead and log into NSX-T as well, just to show you guys what that looks like. If you've been on YouTube at all lately, should be nothing new to any of you that have seen NSX-T and its operational operating and stuff like that. I have both V and T deployed in my vCenter environment here. V because I was working with a couple of clients that are removing V from their environment, and then because I also wanted to work on doing a migration. So I'm going to be doing a lift and shift migration. So I will be basically taking an environment like this and then migrating all the V components to T and things like that. Here we have NSX. If I come over here to system, this does run a little bit slow because everything here is virtualized. And if I come down here to fabric and then I go to nodes, you'll see that I've got quite a few devices built in here and all that good stuff. So go ahead and pull up my compute manager. And as it sits right now, I do have, go ahead and expand all this stuff out. I do currently have a lot of Geneve tunnels up and running. If I go to edge transport nodes, I do have 2 edges deployed. and everybody's happy. A lot of communications working the way that it should be and stuff like that. So this is inside of a 6.7 Update 3 environment. So pretty cool stuff there. But this is the stuff that I'm working on day to day. If I go over here to my networking tab and then go to network topology, I'll show you the environment real quick just so you guys can see how this works. And I'll give you guys a high level overview of how it all comes into play. Currently I'm running OSPF between my tier 0 gateway and my upstream the CSR 1000V that I've got deployed in the environment. And if I come over here, this is the box that all this stuff is running on. So it gives me a lot of capability of playing around with a lot of stuff. Go ahead and refresh that real quick. As it sits right now, my current environment, this is all running in that Dell RA10 that I bought. Wow, that's a lot of bright. So right now I'm looking at about 40 gigahertz of CPU and 150 gigs of RAM. I've got about 40% CPU, 60% RAM. So it's working out really, really well. And if you look over here at my virtual machines, I have quite a few VMs deployed in order to make this all work. And I'm going to walk you guys through how all this stuff works and why I have what I have deployed, what's being used where, and then eventually I will show you guys how to do a migration. I'm still playing with some of these details with how to do the migration, do a lift and shift migration, and how that would actually come into play, and all that good stuff that goes along with that. So a lot of really cool stuff is what I've been working on, so that you guys will be able to see how this works. I'll talk about how you can get vmug access and how you can pick out the server that you need to buy. There's also the option of using hol.vmware.com for the hands-on labs and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, let me go click back over here. At the end of the day, VMware NSX is actually really cool to play with. I really enjoy working with it. And a lot of the capabilities that are available to it are really easy to understand. And I'm going to be walking you through how to get a lot of the stuff working. There's some firewall capabilities and stuff like that that I still have to go through and play with just to make sure that when I demo them, that I'm demoing them correctly and effectively. So a little bit more on the security side that I need to go into. But for the most part, it's pretty cool with what you can do and all the good stuff that goes along with that. So I will walk you guys through a multi-section series once I have the opportunity to get this all done here in the next couple months. And the idea is, and just so everybody understands, there's a build-out process to it. So you've got the initial lab build where you deploy all the data center bits, your ESXi environment, your storage, your vCenter server. You join all of your hosts to vCenter server. You deploy your distributed switches. You deploy all your host networking and all that type of stuff. You get all the main factors of your environment working, and then you start focusing on deploying NSX. And then once you get NSX deployed, then you push all of the NSX config to your clusters. Your hosts have to be in clusters or else it won't work. And from there, you can start building out your NSX environment. And once NSX gets built and you're able to grow it, I can fully 100% connect into anything in my lab from the outside. So my physical environment can talk to my virtual environment, and my virtual environment can talk to my physical environment. All of the VMs that are running in my NSX lab have internet access, like legit internet access. Things are slow, they're not quick, but it's a lab, and I don't care about speed or performance. I just want to make sure that as I'm going through and playing around with the technology, that it's working the way that I expect it to. So that is pretty much what I've got going on. And I will talk to you guys about how all this stuff comes into play as time goes on, and we'll see exactly how all that plays out. If you guys have any questions, please leave a comment in the comment section below. Please like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already done so. And I hope to see you guys in the near future. Thanks, everybody, and take it easy.